just like IRAs have become like the main way people are saving for their retirement, I do predict that in the future, HSAs will start to accumulate like the balances of your IRAs and 401ks.
What will you do when your money works for you? Welcome to the Tech Girl Financial Podcast with your hosts, Victor and Kim Gaxiola. From the home office in California, here's Victor and Kim.
Today on the Tech Girl Financial Podcast, we're talking about a very special subject, something we're pretty excited about, called health savings accounts, also known as HSAs. And I wanted to start with one little statistic here, which I thought caught my attention, and that is, Kim, did you know that according to some Fidelity investment research, paying for healthcare is the number one financial concern among investors, including millionaires?
I did know that, and with valid reason, because according to HealthView Services, typically a 65-year-old couple will spend in their retirement an average of $600,000 combined throughout their lifetime.
Wow.
In healthcare expenses. This is insurance, this is pharmaceutical, this is maybe long-term care, whatever it is. This is on average what people are spending. So they're right.
Right. And it's top of mind, especially for a lot of the people in the boomer generation that are entering into their elder years, where there's going to be an increase in need for medical attention or medical expenses. And since people are living longer, this has become kind of a tail end massive expense for people as they're approaching their retirement or in retirement, that it starts really bleeding a lot of those retirement assets.
Yeah, it sure can, especially at, the longer you live, the more they burn into that portfolio. So this is really important to talk about how we can save for medical expenses when we retire.
So for those people that are unfamiliar with a health savings account, can you give us kind of like a big picture? What is an HSA?
Yes, and I want to say right up front, we don't want to confuse an HSA with an FSA, because a flexible spending account is a use it or lose it situation. You can save, I can't even remember how much now, but let's say it's $2,500 you can save in a flexible account every year. At the end of the year, if you didn't spend all $2,500, it's gone. You start at zero the next year. In an HSA, you are able to roll this over and accumulate assets for your lifetime. So the difference first between an HSA and an FSA account is that the HSA account you can accumulate. And so this should be considered like your 401k or your IRA for medical costs. And I'm going to tell you why I think you should consider this instead of your IRA savings for your retirement medical expenses. Because if you pull out, let's just say you have to spend $600,000, like this statistic says, for you and your spouse's medical concerns throughout retirement. If you were to pull that $600,000 over a lifetime from your 401k or IRA, you're actually having to pull out about $800,000 if you're at a 25% tax bracket, because you still need to pay taxes on IRAs and 401ks as the money comes out. Fast forward, if you had $600,000, which I don't think anybody does right now in an HSA because they're so new, but if you had that money in your HSA account, you could just pull $600,000 out. No need to pay any money to Uncle Sam. It goes tax-free to pay medical expenses. And that's a pretty big thing to talk about.
Yeah, so let's explore a little bit on some of the benefits that are available to clients and to people who have HSAs that establish them. We talk a lot about triple tax advantages as being one of the big ones. So what does that mean, having a triple tax advantage?
Yeah, so it's like a Roth IRA on steroids, right? Because, in your Roth IRA, in order to put that money into your Roth, you've already paid taxes on it, and then it gets to grow tax-free. In an HSA, it's like a 401k or an IRA in that the money goes in pre-tax, never been taxed, and as long as you use it for medical expenses, you can pull it out tax-free. So, it's the best of the IRA and the best of the Roth IRA.
So you've got the contributions are not subject to the federal income tax. All the investment earnings that you make will grow tax-free. And then provided it is a qualified medical expense, when you remove the money or withdraw it, it's not taxed then either.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty good deal. As a matter of fact, statistically, and I'm going to be sharing some stats here from a survey that was conducted with over 5,000 adults across the country. 1/3 of the account holders or the people who were surveyed didn't even know about these 3 tax advantages of an HSA.
That's right. And we actually were using it differently prior to, me attending a seminar on this information, because in my head, I always thought save in the HSA and then just spend it. It's pre-tax money, but, we have expenses that we have to pay for our family. And so I was just spending as I was saving it. And we were both doing that, right? And then I went to this educational event on the topic, and they said, you really should consider investing those funds for the future. And I was like, I've always thought, just save and spend, save and spend. And then I realized that the advantage over time is so much bigger. And so if you have the money to just, pay for your medical expenses as you go outright, just go ahead and do it. Unless it's a big item situation where, it's going to ruin your cash flow, then maybe you pull from the HSA. But the money that you have in your HSA can be invested. And I don't think everybody knows this. And if you are using it just as current cash flow for medical expenses, you probably shouldn't invest it. Because you're going to need it, throughout the year. But if this money you plan on saving for retirement medical expenses, then I would say invest. Because, let's take our example again of the $600,000 that you're going to need as a couple in retirement for healthcare expenses. It is a lot of money. You're going, oh my gosh, $600,000. How am I gonna have all that money, right? But this is where the power of compound interest really works in your favor. So $600,000 in your retirement, maybe depending on where you are and how you have that invested, maybe more like 400 or 300 or 200,000 in today's dollars. So you really want to make sure that, you're getting the most leverage on your money. And that means invest that money, because you will have to spend less of your dollars and more of the profit on healthcare in the future.
Right. And I think a lot of people were unaware that it can be invested. As a matter of fact, most people were looking at more like a bank account, a bank account that they would just pull from because the assets were liquid. And in this case, I think that continues. As a matter of fact, going back to that same survey, 46% or nearly half of the account holders did know that they can invest their HSA balance in mutual funds or other securities. And then another 37%, and this is another benefit of account holders, did know that their unspent balances could actually carry over from year to year, which goes ahead and justifies why investing is not a bad thing. So it's not a use it or lose it.
Right. And so, my own strategy is to save as much as I can over the next couple of years and not have to spend all of it. Maybe I only on a yearly basis, maybe we only use a fraction of it, a quarter or a third of the money we save. The rest I want to invest. And so I will always have some that is, in cash, so that to pay for those things that come up on a monthly basis with medical expenses. But then I really want to put the most away that I think we can afford to shove aside for our retirement. because the benefits, those triple tax benefits, are huge. And that's really important. That's where the investments come into play. So, I really want to tell you, when we think about the benefits of all of this, there was a time when I would hear from people and they thought the only place you could invest your IRAs were in CDs. How many times did you have clients come in and say, well, I have an IRA, but it's in CDs? And they had no idea, because they just opened them up at the bank, that they could actually invest that money. It was just all, that's what the banks were advising, or just putting the money in. And now we have all of these investment options, obviously, for IRAs. And the same holds true for an HSA account. And so it's important to be aware of that. And just like IRAs have become like the main way people are saving for their retirement, I do predict that in the future, HSAs will start to accumulate like the balances of your IRAs and 401ks. Once people understand this triple tax benefit, there's also the idea that, it's not just your contributions into that. It can be an employer's contributions too. And so if we historically look and remember a time when corporations were contributing to pensions, because that's what everybody did, and they had huge liabilities when their employees retired, they were going to pay them out in their pensions. Fast forward, to today, where most corporations have 401ks and they give a match, which is much smaller of a liability for them than the pension was in the past. And looking at healthcare insurance and the high cost of it today for you and me and employers, I predict that there is going to become a time when employers put more away in their employees' HSA accounts as opposed to insurance, because unless something is done about the high cost, this is an easier route for a corporation to go.
Mm-hmm. And it could become part of an employee's benefit package or a way to recruit, right? Or get people excited about working for a specific organization. So one thing that we talked about, it's not a use it or lose it, since things can roll over, but the funds are also completely portable. So if you are, keeping your HSA, even if you move or you change jobs or you get new insurance, you still have access to that account that follows you basically.
Right. And so, much like a 401k, when you're with the company and you are contributing to it, they have their specified vendor for that account. And so when you're working for a company, you're probably going to have your HSA with whoever it is they contract with. However, when you leave that company, you can take that benefit account with you, much like you can roll over your 401k, you can move that HSA to a new vendor or a new, fiduciary for that account. And so that's when the options become bigger for you, because not all HSA accounts right now, it's still a very young type of account, and so there aren't a whole lot of options yet in how you can invest them. But over time, the investment options will become bigger, because more financial companies will start opening up these accounts as well. So that was one thing, I was waiting for us personally, is to get to a point when I could manage our HSA and invest it the way I wanted it to be invested. So finally, I'm so happy we work with NFS, which is a subsidiary of Fidelity, and they now are allowing us to open up HSAs. So we're in the process of, did you know, we're in the process of transferring our account right now.
I did. We're going to be the guinea pig. Well, one other benefit here, and I think it's important to note, because there could be some people who are listening that live pretty healthy lifestyles, don't actually have many medical expenses to begin with, and that is when it comes to the health savings account, after age 65, there is no penalty to use the HSA money for purposes other than healthcare. So, and that's a big one because over half of the people, going back to that same survey, did know that the HSA money could be used for general expenses after the age of 65.
I think that's so great. And again, that is a huge difference in this account. So there are a lot of strategies we can use in order to take advantage of this triple tax benefit and use it after you're 65. What I will tell you right now, and I don't want to go into all the details right now, but what I will tell you right now is it's really important throughout your life to hold on to your medical bills. Even after you pay them, hold on to these, because once you retire and you have those HSA accounts, there's a way to take that money out even after you've already spent it from your HSAs.
So make sure that you pull out like a shoebox, right, or whatever your filing system may be. You can Marie Kondo or go and Marie the organization of getting all your documentations, and of course the receipts from any health related expenses.
Yes. So, it is just as important as your home. Everything you do to improve your home, you want to keep in a shoebox, all the receipts, so that when you go to sell your home, you can, you don't pay additional tax on profits when you spent it on upgrading your home. Same thing with the medical expenses that you pay out of pocket now. If you don't use your HSA account to pay for those medical expenses, hold on to them, because there is a strategy you can use to take money out after you're 65 to cover those things as well.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about, in continuation on the HSA benefits, I want to talk a little bit about cash management features, because one of the things that I really like about it is, and we've had an HSA in the past, is the fact that they've given us an HSA like Visa debit card. And so when I go to, let's say, the dentist and it's not covered through my healthcare plan or a dental plan, that I can actually use that to pay for the cleaning or any of the procedures. Just give them the card, and just like a credit card, they go ahead and run it through, and then it's withdrawn directly from my account, my HSA.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like a kid when I use that card, because, kids don't know when you use a card, you actually have to pay it off afterwards. But this, I feel like, since it's a debit card, you've already saved the money. It's just like, you're not paying almost, because you've already saved the money ahead of time. So yeah, very easy to use to pay for all your medical expenses.
Yeah, and then there's bill pay features as well as check writing for those people who still prefer to write checks. Mm-hmm. But those are some of the cash management features of the HSA. So Kim, shifting gears here, let's talk a little bit about eligibility, because it's not really something that's available to everybody. So what specific criteria must you meet in order to be eligible for an HSA?
Right. So only about 1/3 of Americans are eligible for an HSA. So that's where we have to kind of weed out how many people will actually be able to contribute to this. If you are on Medicare right now, you are not eligible to participate in an HSA. So that's, the mostly retired population. And you need to have a high deductible plan. Mm-hmm. So your PPO, your HMO will not allow it. It has to be a high deductible health plan. Mm-hmm. And so this is where, even when we looked and compared plans, because we're self-employed, we have to buy our own health insurance. Unfortunately, I really did the research to say, okay, is it worth having a high deductible plan? Meaning I'm probably going to have to put a lot out of pocket if something happens to us over the next year or so, in order to have an HSA account. And so what I would say is, it entirely depends on your health and your family situation and how much you use healthcare. But it's important to run the numbers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, see how much you spend average on healthcare, and what are your deductibles if you have a plan by a company. But for those of us that are self-employed, I would probably venture to guess that most of them have a high deductible health plan, especially if they don't have that many health issues because when you do the math and pay those, most people that are self-employed are probably paying somewhere for a family of four, $1,500 to $2,000 a month in insurance. And the deductibles don't come in, until you've spent a lot of money, that it's not worth it to get a plan, a PPO or an HMO where you're probably spending more like $2,500 a month for a little extra, for a little less of a deductible per year. So it really is important that you do the math. And the last thing, you have to not be claimed as someone else's dependent in order to be eligible for the plan.
So those are the three. So, whether you meet the criteria, it doesn't seem like it's all that, not entirely restrictive. And it seems to be really well suited for those people that might be self-employed or, working for a smaller company that may actually offer the high deductible plans.
Yeah, that's probably where the sweet spot is for this. So, and also it's important to know how much can you contribute to these accounts, because, just as much as we would love to shove as much money as we could in these accounts, it's not possible. So the contributions for 2020 are $3,550 for an individual, $7,100 for a family, and there are $1,000 catch-up contributions for those over the age of 50. So you notice how the terminology is sounding a lot like an IRA or a 401k? Catch-up contributions.
I would expect, too, that over time, perhaps, that these contribution limits will likely go up as healthcare expenses go up, or as more people start adopting this strategy of having an HSA. And, from the big picture, if you've got your retirement assets in a 401k or let's say in an IRA, and then you've got an HSA, which is mostly earmarked, let's say, for healthcare expenses down the road, this really looks like more like a complementary strategy, right? As part of an overall investment strategy in looking towards expenses down the road.
Yeah, it is definitely a complementary strategy, goes hand in hand with your retirement savings. And, again, going back to our personal situation, is I want to make sure every year that we are maxing out on this plan, because the benefits are better in retirement than a 401k or an IRA account. And so, first we max out on this, and then we put the rest of the money that we can into our other retirement accounts.
Well, and that was one of the questions, that I'm sure people are asking themselves when you look at the contribution limits of $7,100 for a family with $1,000 catch-up contributions, which as my advanced age, we're getting closer to that, and wanting to maximize this. Maybe you don't have that money like on the sidelines ready to throw at this. What are some of the ways that people can think about funding an HSA outside of just taking money out of their bank account?
Aside from feeding your bank account into the HSA, you can also, if you have multiple HSAs from other companies that you've worked for, you can transfer them in and consolidate into one HSA account. And I would make sure that HSA account that you consolidate to has a lot of investment options, right? If you don't, you're in square one, where that money doesn't grow for you. And then the second thing would be you can make a one-time contribution from an IRA account into the HSA. And so that's a nice way to fund a little bit more into the plan.
Right. And so the nice thing there is that they will allow you to do it without being subject to federal income taxes or the 10% that's usually applied if it's an early withdrawal. So nice way to kind of start it off if you don't have one.
Right.
And you have IRA assets, but you want to kickstart an HSA, this is a good way of doing it, especially if you don't have that big bank account that's ready to fund it right away.
That's true.
So overall, there's a number of different benefits and things to consider in looking at having a health savings account as part of your overall investment strategy. We were excited just to bring it to you just because we are now in a position to assist our clients and people who are interested in opening up an HSA in not only opening the account, but also helping them with the investment strategy and the investment selection. So having some oversight on how people are managing their health savings.
That's right. So even though I think most HSA accounts today are fairly small in size, again, I don't make predictions, but I do think that this is going to become like your 401k big in the future. And so remember that you heard it here first, us talk about HSAs, and remember that these are great accounts. So as they become available and as you enter into situations where you now have the option to have an HSA account, remember us and remember that there's something really good about them and there's a lot of great strategies to them. And, when the time comes and you want to have that conversation, we're always here to talk to you about the really cool strategies behind them.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. And so, from time to time, we'll come across different investment strategies and things that we think are important for people to listen and to learn. And one of the biggest reasons why we started the podcast is for it to serve as a platform to educate and provide insights on some of the things that that are happening, in the world of investments and the financial markets. And this is one that we stand close to because many of us know someone who has health issues or has had health issues, or even maybe ourselves. And so in anticipation that this will become a bigger part of people's portfolios and strategies, we wanted to come out and share some information. I'm sure there's plenty of information out there. We'll share some resources in the show notes, as we typically do in every podcast. And again, if you're interested in wanting to explore this for yourself, please reach out to us. Just click the contact us on our website or send me an email at victor@techgirlfinancial.com. So once again, we want to thank you very much for listening to the Tech Girl Financial Podcast. Be sure to let us know if there's any specific topic that you'd like for us to address and talk about. We'd be happy to hear from it as well.
Yes, it's been fun to give new content today and exciting new investment strategies most don't know about.
Yeah, I think it's been fun to talk about something other than COVID-19.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. And remember, everyone, to be safe, be kind. Bear hugs will come later.
Bye.
If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for future shows, please send an email to victor@techgirlfinancial.com or join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag AskTGF. We also encourage you to follow us on the Tech Girl Financial page on Facebook and connect with us on LinkedIn.
Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Tech Girl Financial and Cambridge Investment Research, Inc. are not affiliated companies.
Skrrr.